The fall of man. The principle in which man is incarnated. Man was created by God. The first was God alone. This is the first and only cause. Out of him and by him all things are created. There can be no other source. All was created by the infinite, and the infinite saw that it was good. The Bible reveals that the earth and everything in it was created first, ready, complete, so that man, when he came, could take control and own the world according to God's law. Then God said, "Let us make man in our own image and likeness, to resemble us, with mastery over everything." Why ask when God is only one? Because the infinite is Father, Mother, God, out of which all is created. The Father is the consciousness, the will which directs. The Mother is the intelligence, automatic in nature, and brings forms forth. The substance is the womb or vehicle in which the consciousness and intelligence forms its own creation. This substance is also called mind. In the record of the creation of man, in Genesis it says, Adam was asleep. God took from him a rib, and made a mate, and called the mate woman. The significance of this is the similarity with the infinite, who creates within himself a spouse, through which the manifestation of his creation would take place. The spouse is the intelligence and substance through which all forms are created, which was created out of the infinite by the infinite, but there is no other possible source from which it could come. Therefore, he calls himself us. The dual aspect of mankind is the same as the dual aspect of the infinite. Man, in his spiritual state, is both male and female. The Father, Mother, God created you in his likeness, having power to create by means of the same creative power. Most people have missed the great point of the Christ power within. This power brings forth everything you need: health, happiness, and excellence in life. What is it that man has to do? Master himself in every way. The principles in which he is incarnated are the principles that the infinite created in the spiritual realms, and God saw all that he had made, and it was very good. Therefore the physical is good, yet man sees evil, and thus creates it for himself. Man is incarnated with power over the internal as well as the external. All power is given unto me in heaven and on earth. You come from the one spiritual source, therefore, you are like unto God, the fundamental principles being the same. The physical is but the vehicle through which you must master all external things on earth, through your awareness of your divine inheritance. When man is in the Garden of Eden means when he recognizes and realities his true spiritual self, made in the image and likeness of God. But we are told, man has been expelled from the Garden of Eden. So the great questions are, how did man fall from his true spiritual state? And has he the power to rise in? The key to man's power of self-evolution. The creative power that gives rise to thoughts is unlimited in itself, but the thought is limited by the conception which it is sent forth to embody. One cannot conceive the whole truth in a conception. Truth is not a conception. We do not conceive the truth in our minds. We know the truth is not what it is. The mind is the vehicle through which truth reveals itself to man. Truth is the infinite himself, the mighty power everywhere, the creator of all things. All things created by God were good. No matter how great a conception is limited because mind cannot comprehend all truth. But you cannot limit truth, for truth is beyond mind. The mind which dwells upon the wider conception based upon an enlarged perception of the truth will produce corresponding results. This is self-evident. Yet man can enter into his highest riches through the realization of his oneness with truth. If a student will fix this very simple idea in his mind, he will find the key to the whole mystery of man's power of self-evolution. With this key, we can unlock the mysteries of the Bible. When you get beyond ideas, you realize that you are creating images and concepts yourself. But do not try to find yourself in images or ideas. If you do, you will find out that it is you who are creating the idea of truth in your own mind, and this is but a conception of truth. We do not create truth through a conception. Truth is beyond mind. Truth is not an idea or an image. Truth is. The human brain cannot comprehend all truth. You must know that you are the truth, the expression of the infinite with all its attributes. You live in your mind. You live in secondary causes. You are never out of them, because you never realize that you are the thinker. The thinker comes first. The infinite says to you clearly, you shall not have an image before me. I am no image. I am. Know your real self to be, I am. The mystery of life is revealed in the Bible to those who understand creative thought, but for those who do not understand this great power, the meaning is hidden, and it is well that it is so. The story of the fall of man. That the story of the Garden of Eden is an allegory is clearly shown by the nature of the two trees that grew in the center of the garden. The tree of life and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. This allegory has been repeated in many ages and many lands. For instance, the romance of a rose, the garden of the Hesperides. The meaning of all these stories is the same. The garden is the garden of the soul. And the tree of life is that innermost perception of spirit, of which Jesus said that it would be a well of water springing up to everlasting life to all who realize it. If you listen to my words and believe, you have already passed from death across to life. It is the garden which is elsewhere called the garden of the Lord. It is the garden in which man's soul functions, works, acts, creates. The plants which man must tend and cultivate are thoughts and ideas of life. In the garden, the main tree is the tree of life, and the other is the tree of knowledge of good and evil. These trees are represented as being in the center of the garden. They must be the central point, for from this point all other ideas must flow outwards, taking their life and color from them. Human life is an action that takes place in three worlds: spiritual, intellectual, physical. So, when reading the Bible, we should know about which world we are reading. The spiritual is the supreme and is absolutely perfect. In the first chapter of Genesis, we read that God saw that his work was good. The divine eye could find no flaw anywhere, and we should note carefully that this absolutely perfect creation includes man. But as soon as we descend to the intellectual world, which is the world of man's conception of things, it is quite different. Man's misconceptions result from the fact that he does not realize the true spiritual nature of things, resulting in the misdirection of his creative power of thought, which produces corresponding results in misinformed ideas of reality. Man misdirects the power of thought. Man sees that there is something else besides all that is good. His intellectual nature, not being complete in itself, sees evil as a power in the world, opposing good. The intellect is a necessary adjunct to mankind, but when he treats it as the infallible thing, then he creates errors, and by so doing outpictures these errors in his mind, body, and circumstances. It is always the deepest thought that manifests. You do not get what you want, but what you think deeply. Thus man's conceptions bring forth his own misconceptions. Because of the law inherent in his being, man was created in the image and likeness of God in the spiritual state, with the same creative power to create. The intelligence was perfect and would bring forth perfection because in his consciousness he realizes all perfection as did the first creative cause. So we read there are two trees in the Garden of Eden. One is the tree of life, the other the tree of good and evil. God told man that he must not partake of the fruit of the tree of good and evil, for by doing so he would die in his sin, in his ignorance. This tree was of the intellect, when man saw evil as well as good, and by doing so the intellect dwelt upon evil, and naturally man lived then in the illusion of the evil. Because man continued to live in this illusion, God put him out of the Garden of Eden, for he was no longer spiritual or perfect in his thought. He saw the evil and was blind to his own true state. By the law of God and man, he shut himself off from the true state of his being. He covered himself, as did Eve, with clothes, and they hid themselves. Thus, they no longer saw that what God created was good, and so developed the evil in man's mind, evil thoughts of God's creation, including himself. Man could no longer remain in the Garden of Eden, his spiritual state, so he divorced himself from the perfect, through the law of his own being, and he created the evil which he saw. Thus he lived in a world of illusion that he himself had created and was blind to the truth of the all-good. He is told that the only way to salvation is again to take hold of the tree of life, that he would then remove evil from his consciousness and thus free himself from his circumstances and again become the Son of God, as he is now, as he always was, but in his ignorance was unaware of the fact. Stick to first principles. Do not get mixed up in images and ideas. Even high ideals, like reincarnation, belong to the past and are relative. You must take hold of the tree of life. This alone will be your salvation. It is a direct order to man. As long as man mixes up the tree of life with the tree of good and evil, so will he live in the world of illusion, sorrow, and conflict. It is man's ideas and images that cause separation and misery to himself and to the world in which he lives. He must become one-pointed with regard to the tree of life, which is man's perfect state. Then, and then only, can be shed this self-created illusion. I and the Father are one. I do the will of the Father, the Father's will is done in me. believe you are life. What one believes, so it is unto him. He that believes in his heart, because his own creative power is one with the one creative power in the universe, and by this he thinks, and what he thinks, so it is unto him. Good and evil are relative terms, and the fruit is the growth or manifestation of these, so man eats of the effects and has lost himself in illusion. We're bound up in the effects of our own causes. Freedom comes when we discern the causes in ourselves and remove them, then that which really is love and understanding. This is the freedom of truth. Man's consciousness is not the result of some evolutionary process, nor is it the reaction to external things. It is the essential awareness of life itself. Man is essentially spiritual, and was so before he became physical. He is now spiritual, for that is his eternal reality, and as he really is in nature. Man's spiritual evolution or unfoldment begins when he realizes his awareness as being one with the infinite awareness. This must come through the individual first, before it becomes universal. Then, naturally, the change will take place in the whole race. The new heaven and the new earth will come into being, for the very germ seed is here now at this moment, forcing its way through the darkness of the human mentality. It only wants man to bring this into operation, for his is the greatest power the infinite has on earth, and he alone is the one who can do it. The way to complete emancipation is the recognition of the one good, and the acting of that good because, in fact, mankind alone is the instrument through which the infinite is operating. When we realize the perfect spiritual state, it will manifest, for it will come forth of its own free will. This is the law of our living, and the law of life, that what we know to be true becomes true. According to your faith shall it be unto you. These words are well known, but few understand the depth and power behind the spoken word. These words, when understood properly, will lead you into the mighty truth, and when you accept it fully in your life, the perfection of the innermost essence will be proclaimed in the external. It can only be when you realize your own creative power, made in the image and likeness of God. Free yourself by the recognition of this truth. Raise your hand and take hold of this, the tree of life, and so gain your divine birthright. Life alone lives. We are life. I am the life. The beginning and end are one. Is there anything strange or peculiar about these words? They mean exactly what they say. The Master said, I am the life. The Father and I are one. And he proved definitely that he was the life. He brought to mankind the greatest message in all the world, that of man's divinity and eternal existence in the all-good. Man has to accept this to make it a reality in his own life, and within mankind himself is the proof of this. So we see Moses and Jesus are the two great prophets. The one spoke of the other, for Moses said, Oh, would that the Lord raise up a prophet like unto me. And Jesus said, in effect, I am the prophet of whom Moses spoke. I have not come to destroy the law of Moses and the prophets, but to fulfill the law. If they would not listen to Moses and the prophets, neither would they be persuaded, though one rises from the dead. Moses and Jesus came to complete the great scheme of the evolution of mankind. Man must actually raise himself up through the Christ within. As Moses raised the serpent in the wilderness, so must the Son of Man be lifted up. These words were spoken by the Master, showing the individualization of universal spirit, or God, in man. Man is warned that death will be the result of eating the fruit of the tree of good and evil, but the warning is disregarded by Eve. She shares the forbidden fruit with Adam, and both are expelled from the garden. Now, if Eden is the garden of the soul, it is clear that Adam and Eve are not separate personages, but the two principles of the human individuality which are so clearly united as to be represented by a wedded pair. What are these principles? Paul, in 1 Timothy 2:13, says, Adam was not deceived, it was Eve who was deceived. After some time, Adam was expelled from the garden for partaking of the fruit. Now, here is where we find the key. Adam and Eve are the two principles, one of which is capable of being deceived, and is deceived, and falls in consequence. The other is incapable of being deceived, yet is involved in the fall of the former. God made man, in the first place spiritually, male and female, in his own image and likeness. This is spiritual man. The story goes, God molded man from the dust of the ground. Man then takes on the physical garb, which was given life, as represented in the story, by God breathing into this corporeal form, the breath of life, proving that the earth man, the body, has no existence outside the life that is in it. Here we see Adam as the symbol of the material substance. Eve is called the mother of life, and here we see the sole principle, in which life creates and reproduces. So we see clearly what is meant. It is the soul and body. Eve represents the psychic, and Adam represents the material or physical. The soul is deceived, and the body falls with it. Since the soul is the builder of the body, the deception which causes wrong thinking on the part of the intellectual man reproduces itself in the physical imperfections and in adverse extreme circumstances. The soul is the only one capable of being deceived, but the body, not being capable, falls with it. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Job said, "What I feared has come upon me." The intellect, then, was the element that created images and believed them true. And what was true to the soul was outpictured on the body. Thus, by the power of his own creative being, man fell. The story proves that the intellect is wrong because it believes in evil. It is the intellectual man, and not the spiritual man, who has caused all our troubles. We can see plainly how a group of intellectual people without spiritual understanding use their power to create destruction and misery. What is war about but money, trade, and intellectual greed? Things. Man, using his intellect for his own selfish ends, has created an atmosphere in this world today resulting in ill health and misery, mentally and physically. Yet man's salvation is at hand. A few strong individuals who do not know the truth control large commercial organizations, monopolizing oil, rubber, iron, and the commodities of life, and prevent their proper distribution to mankind. These groups then have to keep an army to fight for them and a government to carry out their orders, a religion and all the other accessories to preach and pray for them. So man is completely submerged by all forms of propaganda, including even that of religion. This is the intellect of man. The spiritual ranting you hear is but a smokescreen. The church has failed utterly. It has aided and abetted the evils of our political, social, and economical systems instead of exposing them. The intellectual nonsense bred through ignorance will still keep man in the same state until such time as he realizes and recognizes his true state. The new order we hear so much about is becoming as much lip service as the teachings of Christ. If the true teachings of Christ were adhered to, there would be no need for a new order. The true teachings of Christ can save the world. He came for that purpose, but man crucified him. If he came this way again today and revealed himself, man would again denounce him and reject him and despise him. Yet only by living his teachings can man free himself. The serpent is claimed to be the cause of the fall of Eve. Now the serpent is the symbol of the life principle in its external manifestation. The yogi symbolizes the serpent as the kundalini, meaning the coiled up, the life in the body, not the originating life principle, but the outcome of that life principle. Now it is often represented in its negative form as the deceiving element. This means man's intellectual nature, caused by the union of the two aspects of the same thing. Now, when we realize the fact that it comes from God, and is the completion of the divine work by outward manifestation, in this sense, it becomes the serpent that Moses lifted up in the wilderness. The Master said, "As Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, so must the Son of Man be lifted up." The yogi says it is necessary to raise up in the body the kundalini or serpent, the life principle, to the top of the head, thereby making it entirely spiritual under control of the will of the I Am.